Hey, welcome. I'm excited to talk to you about this topic because we're talking about selfishness. Should you be more selfish is a specific question I want you to be answering for yourself today. And the reason I'm doing this topic is because, as you guys know, many powerhouses come to me wanting support with making the money that they know they're capable of without burning out, right? And we do that. The way that I do that is, a lot of work on helping someone own their value, own their voice, and being able to receive higher end fees. And one of the biggest challenges in order for them to do that is that there's this fear that they're going to be seen or perceived as greedy, that people will judge them as being selfish, putting their needs first. It's almost like you have these big desires. If you can relate to any of this, you have these big desires, but you think that it's selfish to go for them, to put yourself first, to ask for what you need and want and actually receive it, right? So I want to talk to you about that today because I used to feel the same way for an extremely long time. The behavior was modeled to me. Number one, that being a strong woman, it is our role to give, right? So obviously, what do you think I attract? I attract a lot of clients who are in this place where they're always giving, and they really want to receive, but they don't know how to receive. And so the advice I give to my clients, and what I'm suggesting for you as well, is that if you know that you're that person, if you know that you're the kind of person who will work your tail to the bone because you don't want to delegate, or maybe you want to delegate but don't feel like you have the support in order to delegate, maybe you have done so in the past, but you don't feel that people perform the task to the level that you desire, and then you take it back, and then you have control over everything, that kind of stuff. If you're feeling like you're not getting help around the house, from your partner, or your kids, if you feel that you're not getting the support that you're looking for in your personal relationships or in any other area, if you feel that you tend to attract clients who are more of the heavy lifting type, where they're not really doing their own work, maybe they do some of it, but they're not really doing the work that's required, and it feels like you have to constantly stay on them. So obviously, holding people accountable is part of our work as coaches and mentors. But you feel like you have to kind of pull them more than necessary. And what you're really wanting to do as you're entering into another phase of your life and your business, and you're wanting to evolve and up level, what you're wanting to experience is the ability to relax and trust that things will get done, the ability to have more time, more peace of mind, more freedom, all those kind of things. So if that's where you're at, if that's what you're desiring, then I am going to invite you, welcome Cindy, welcome Leslie, I am going to invite you to consider being more selfish. So this is not something that I would recommend to someone who has a history of being very selfish, meaning that everything is about them, they don't do for other people. Those are not my clients, and I'm sure that's not you. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be attending a webinar where we're questioning whether you should be more, or a live stream, whether we're questioning whether or not you should be more selfish. But for you, the type of person that I'm referring to is someone who finds himself being a people pleaser, the caretaker, the rescuer all of the time. For you, I would invite you to be more selfish. And here's what I really want you to entertain. When you stop doing so much for everyone, you actually create the space for people in your life to step up, whether that's in your business, whether it's in your personal life. So we can look at it as you being more selfish, but what you're actually doing in that process, when you consider your needs and wants first for a change, you actually allow people to step up, right? And fulfill their role at a higher level, right? What tends to happen for people like us who are able to do so much, like just get shit done, right? A lot of the times the people around us, they get comfortable with that, they get relaxed in that. And we would then tend to think, well, this is why I don't ask anyone for help, which is, typically how this behavior is rationalized. You don't ask for help because you don't get it. Or when you get it, it's not at the level that you want. And so what does that allow you to do? It allows you to take control of everything again. But you cannot be in control of every single thing, right? And grow your business in the way that you want to grow your business, right? If you want to be stressed out 24/7, be my guest, continue to do that. But I'm sure you're here right now because there is a desire within you to allow yourself to experience your desires, right? Meaning that you don't keep putting yourself last on your list, that you don't keep doing for everyone else first, that you don't keep dismissing what you want and what you need and telling yourself, well, I don't really need that, I can do without it, it's not that big of a deal, and allow yourself to continue tolerating some of the things that you're tolerating because you don't want other people to feel uncomfortable, you don't want to be judged by anyone or by yourself as being selfish, right? And so one of the ways that you can reframe this is that, again, when you stop trying to be superwoman, essentially, right, then you actually allow the space for the people in your world to step up and support you. This is obviously, yes, you want to be supported, but you also stop enabling their behavior that's not helping them get to what they want either, right? Part of this came from a reality show. I'm not going to mention the name here today, but I was watching a reality show yesterday, and one of the wives, there are a couple of different married women on the show. One of the wives I thought was extremely selfish. That's where this topic came from. And as I was watching it, and I was like, oh, she's so selfish, she's so selfish, she's so selfish. And I thought about, why do I have such a judgment around that? And, I thought to myself, there's some things I do think that she went too far with. But there were other things where I noticed the way that her husband responded to her, it was as if it fulfilled him to feel like he could satisfy her in that way, right? He could do certain things that she wanted to get done around the house, pick up the kids, those kind of things. And it really made me think about how often, again, I'm talking about powerhouse women who typically can, run circles around people. You know what I'm talking about. If this is resonating with you, right? And so you don't really pause, you don't really ask, right? You just keep settling, you just keep doing everything on your own. And then you wonder why you feel that you're not supported, right? When you're simply not willing to risk asking and maybe hearing no. You may hear no the first couple of times, but if you persist and you continue to ask, what will happen, right? Even if you have a dynamic in your relationship that has been created over a number of years where, and this could be in your personal relationship, it could be in your business, whatever the case may be, if you have a dynamic with people in your life where you're always the one giving and over giving, right? And there isn't room for those folks to step up and number one, support you more and also be better for themselves, right? If you're not allowing that, then you can't really wonder why you feel unsupported or you feel like you have to do it all by yourself. That is a story you keep telling yourself. And so what I'm inviting you to do is stop telling yourself that story. And I'm inviting you to see that being selfish can actually not only serve you, but it can also serve the people around you. For example, if you feel like you're a rescuer when it comes to working with your clients, if you're always rescuing your clients, maybe stop rescuing them, right? Still provide the service that you're providing to them, but give them the space to step up, right? Do the work, challenge them obviously so that they do the work and so they actually get the results, right? Versus always going into rescue, always going into fix, right? I've seen this with parents as well, where they're always going in. I'll give you a perfect example. I'm my mother's firstborn, and the way that I was raised was figure it out. If something goes wrong, figure it out, right? I'd call my mom and this is what's going on, and I'm crying, and she's like, listen, we're not in a position to help you figure it out. And I will tell you, when I was growing up, I felt a bit resentful because, my sister, my brother came after me, and that wasn't their story. It wasn't their experience, to my knowledge. And as I became an adult is when I started to look back and compare, and I was like, wait a minute, what the hell is this shit, right? But I will tell you something. What it taught me when I had to figure it out was to be fiercely independent and to rely on myself and to feel like I could control a lot of things, which is great. Those are great qualities and traits to have, right? But after a while, any strength overused can become a weakness. And so I had to learn how to then balance. It was more challenging for me to receive than it was to give, because I was so used to giving and doing everything for myself and other people. My brother and my sister, on the other hand, were raised completely different. They were more taken care of. And so as they developed and matured, they were more used to receiving than giving, right? So you can see how sometimes the way that you were raised can have a huge role to play in this. But after a while, we have to stop blaming our parents for how we were brought up, and we have to take responsibility. So what I had to do as an adult was say, okay, this is how I was raised. There were some great aspects to it, and there were some not so great aspects to it. This is not about judgment, but this is about, okay, what do I like? You know what I mean? From the way I was brought up, what do I not like? And what do I need to work on? Right? And one of the biggest things I had to work on was my ability to receive, was my ability to not have to feel like I was in control of everything, because I was actually doing that to compensate for the feeling of not feeling safe, right? I felt like I had to have control over everything in my life because I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel like, if things didn't go well, that I had a backup plan to fall on, right? And so it made me a businesswoman, right? It made me someone who can solve problems like this. I mean, I'm like a MacGyver, like the female MacGyver. I can just make shit happen, right? And at the same time, I did not know how to receive for a very long time. And, this doesn't just tie into your relationships. It doesn't just tie into, the work you're doing with clients. It also ties into, wanting to receive more in terms of income, right? If you're wanting to make a lot more money, but you're not wanting to work with so many clients, or you're not wanting to have to, sacrifice so much of your quality time with your family or doing the other things that you love to do, then you're going to have to learn how to receive more. You're going to have to delegate without micromanaging, right? You're going to have to ask for what you want repeatedly until you start getting it, right? And what you will start to notice, if you haven't been doing this, what you'll start to notice after a while is that, for example, if you're in a relationship and right now your husband or your partner isn't very supportive, you will start to notice that they become more supportive, right? You will start to notice that your parents become more supportive, or your friends become more supportive, because you are not the one taking over that role all of the time, right? There has to be more fluidity in terms of the roles that you're playing in your relationships. I'll give you another example. I have a business manager. Many of you guys know her, and I'll take questions in a moment. Hey, Emily, how are you? I have a business manager, and we have regular weekly calls. And one of the things I shared with her was that I wanted her to anticipate my needs more. And when I said that to her, what she said to me was that she tends to see me as someone who has it all together. And I do. In most part, I have a lot of it together, but I don't have everything together, right? There are still areas where more support is needed from me. And when I said that to her, it was surprising to me what she said in response, in addition to feeling like I always had everything together. And I've heard that a lot, not just in this situation. She also mentioned feeling like she was now more empowered to help me more. And so I had to take responsibility for, where else in my life, whether it's in business or personal, where else am I giving off the vibe that I have it all under control, that I don't desire or need for additional support, right? And so for those of you who are feeling, that you're not receiving the support that you're wanting, you need to start asking the appropriate questions. You need to start, number one, asking for what you want. And if you're not receiving it, or if someone gives you feedback like my business manager gave to me, then you need to further interrogate, okay, where are the other areas of my life where I am giving off this vibe, right? Because what we tend to do is we have a story. My story started when I was very young, and that was a story that I carried with me throughout my adulthood, that I had to do it all myself, And so even unconsciously, I was still giving off that vibe. But because I'm aware that that story has been present for me, I now ask for what I want. And I'll ask, and I'll ask, and I'll ask, and I'll ask, and I'll ask. And even if I get rejected, I'm still going to ask. And even when it feels uncomfortable to ask, I'm still going to ask. I can't tell you how many times as I started this process, because I realized that, listen, either I'm going to defeat the story or the story's going to defeat me, right? I realized that I would not ask for what I wanted, because part of my story was that I just didn't receive. That every time I would ask, especially from people that I really cared about, the response was, we can't help you. You have to figure it out on your own. And that was a tape that kept running in the back of my head over and over and over again. And it impacted me in business. It impacted me personally, relationships, everything. So I said, I am not going to continue to buy into the story, right? And so when I asked, I think I shared maybe last week or so, I was in LA and I was at a hotel, and I had to move rooms 3 times to find the right room. And I think I said this last week when I posted, I was uncomfortable by the second time asking. It's like, oh my God, I'm so uncomfortable to ask, because these people are going to think I'm fucking crazy, or they're going to think I'm fucking difficult. And I just asked anyway. even though I was told that the room type that I wanted was not available, like all this kind of stuff. I heard myself, and I felt the fear. I said, well, I'm just going to ask. And I did, and I got the perfect room for me. But it's the same kind of thing. It's like, you know, when you know what the story is, you can't think it's a one and done. You can't think, all right, well, I have this story around, you know, being able to receive, or, you know, whatever the case may be. And so you might ask once, and maybe you get what you want. And the second time you ask and you don't get what you want, you don't stop there. You don't say, okay, well, I'm regressing now. And sometimes it's unconscious that we start to regress, right? But you need to be diligent, and you need to continue to ask. And when people say no, you don't take it personally. You just ask again, and you may ask the same person again. It really doesn't matter. But that's the way you're going to defeat your story. And tying this all back up to being more selfish, again, when you do this, even when it feels uncomfortable, you're typically coming from a place where it really feels like it's all about you. And so you're worried, like, well, I don't want to be this person that I don't think is maybe a nice person or a good person, whatever judgment you have around being more selfish, right? Because I know I had a shit ton of judgment around it. But you have to realize it's not just about you. Because when you ask for what you want, you then give other people who care about you the opportunity to give to you, which is what they desire. So when I shared with my business manager that I wanted her to anticipate my needs more, that's actually something that she wanted to do. She wanted to be able to support me more and didn't know how, right? So that opened the dialogue for that experience, and it's changed it's changed the dynamic of our relationship. So I'm now getting my needs met, and she's also getting a need met for her, which is to be able to provide more service, right? So you really want to start thinking about that, right? You want to stop making it all about you and what you think, or what you think other people are going to think when you ask for what you need, right? And realize that the other party involved actually gets to benefit when you become more selfish, when you start asking for what you want instead of trying to be Superwoman, trying to take care of everybody else, and continuing to stuff your needs and wants down to the bottom of your list. That needs to stop, right? And again, it impacts you everywhere you are, right? Because we are who we are everywhere. So if you notice that in your personal life, you're biting your tongue, you're not asking for what you want, or you're doing that with yourself, right? Maybe you write down a list of goals or whatever, and you don't achieve them, and you just kind of dismiss it, right? You're not really giving to yourself. You're making everything else more important than you. And if you think you can do that in your personal life and it not impact your business, you're wrong, right? If you think that, you know, you can be in a relationship where every time you ask for support, the person says no and you just drop it, and you don't think that that's going to have an impact in your business, you're wrong, right? It will have an impact, because how you're showing up in your relationships, how you're showing up with the vendors, how you're showing up with people you employ, right? Is how you're showing up with your clients. It's all connected. So who has any questions for, based on what I shared? So Jean says, no, I am giving off that vibe. You are or you're not? I'm not sure what you mean. So Emily says, I love seeing that happens in the last few months. Support from my family and husband. Exactly. Listen, you know, we are always first cause, and I'm sure I've said this before. When you decide for yourself what it is that you want and you commit to that, you will be amazed at how doors open. Doors that seemed like they not only were shut, but they were like, you know, had 3 different locks on them, right? You will start to see those doors swing wide open, and opportunities, you know, become more readily available to you. So if your story is that I don't receive support, you know, from my partner or my kids, then you will continue to recreate that story in various experiences. I think I shared maybe earlier this week, again, the story from when I was in LA. I love great service, and I had great service all week until one of the last days that I was there was a different waitress or a different server, and you know, she was kind of cold towards me, and I really wasn't feeling it. And I had to do this mental stuff, you know, for myself, and I was like, wait a minute. You know, I thought about not tipping her, and I was like, no, but that's not who I am. I like to tip, and I like to tip well, especially when I get great service. So I had to, like, you know, think this out through my head, like, what am I going to do? And I was like, nah, fuck this shit. I'm going to tip her, right? Because maybe, here's what I said to myself. Here's how I shifted the experience for myself. I said, well, maybe she was just having a bad day. So I'm not taking this personally. You know, maybe she just had a bad day. And, you know, that was it, really. I didn't expect anything else of her. And when I shifted my own thoughts behind it, which allowed me to not, feel emotional and then feel like I have to, react by not tipping her. I said, no, I'm just going to tip her. You know what I mean? And just dismiss this experience, whatever the case may be. It will get better tomorrow, All of a sudden, her vibe towards me changed. She was so much more attentive, right? Asking me if I wanted refills and all this other kind of stuff that was not happening in the beginning, right? And it just goes to show us how much we are the cause. Now, I'm not saying that I was the cause of the initial interaction with her, but I do believe that by me not pushing against it, by me not feeling like I had to react, right, in a way that was counter to how I choose to be in the world, that it did change the experience, because she didn't, I'm not pushing against her. There was nothing there, right? And it just shifted the energy. And we have a lot of power like that. And I think oftentimes we misuse it and we think, well, this is my lot in life. It's not your lot in life. We have created our experiences through the stories that we're telling ourselves. So you really get the opportunity to change the story, to change what you're thinking, to change how you're feeling, to change how you choose to respond or react to situations, right? I will tell you, there was a time, and this is just an example of changing story, right? And how it can change your life. This is actually related to my business. There was a time when, I teach high-end programs. And I will tell you, I see a lot of people who come to me and they struggle with receiving, which is why I mentioned this to you guys, part of why we're doing this topic, because, your ability to be more selfish and to ask for what you want, regardless of what you think or how you think people will react, plays into your ability to receive the kind of money that you want, the kind of fees that you're asking for from your clients. So oftentimes what will happen is, when someone is uncomfortable with receiving, but they have the desire to charge more, what they'll do is they'll go out and they'll pitch a couple of people, their higher end programs, a 10K program, a 30K program, a 50K program, whatever the case may be. And then the person doesn't say yes. And they go back into this this fear that no one's going to say yes, right? And they essentially make other people's money stuff their own money stuff, right? And obviously, oftentimes it is a mirror. If they're uncomfortable with money, the other person might be uncomfortable with money. But there are times when, you can be super confident in something and then you're attracting someone who's not confident, and it is what it is. Now, when I was first selling higher end fees, I was so obsessed. I was so fucking selfish. And here's the thing. I'm thinking, what I've been talking about this live stream is being more selfish, yes. But I think that and I don't know how to make the distinction, so I'm going to do my best to explain it to you. I think that there is a selfish where you make it all about you and it doesn't serve anyone else. And there's a selfish where it's about you and it serves other people. And I'm going to see if I can make this distinction clear. When I was just saying that when I was charging high-end fees, I was so selfish. What I was going to say to follow that up was, I was selfish because although I desired higher end fees, because I was so afraid of it, I was afraid of the fees that I wanted to charge, I selfishly would punk out sometimes when it came time to ask for what I wanted to receive, okay? Now, why do I say I selfishly punked out? Because that client needed that service, right? But that's the only reason I would have offered it to the client, because they needed the service. But because I was afraid, I wouldn't offer that level of service. I would then offer, something smaller, because I was afraid to go there and challenge my own stuff, right? So I allowed my fears to stop me from really being of service to the other client or to the client. So that's the not so good selfish, right? The good selfish is when you're like, okay, well, listen, I require $20,000 to feel good about offering this service. And I know that it's worth at least double that, right? And then even if there's fear, you ask anyway. And you allow the client then to decide whether or not they're going to step into the program, right? That's a different kind of selfish, because it's not the kind of selfish where I am taking away an opportunity from somebody, right? The first one where I was allowing my fears to stop me, that's the kind of selfish that we don't want, right? The other selfishness that I'm talking about, that I led this whole live stream with, is when when you're putting yourself first, it is also benefiting other people. Now, does that mean that before you decide to put yourself first, you always have to think about who else is going to benefit? No, I don't think so. But my point is, you can kind of tell when you asking for what you need serves you and it serves other people versus when it's just all about you, and more specifically, when it's all about your fears. All right, that might be the real distinction that we're looking for here. When your selfishness is coming from a place of fear, that's the kind we want to avoid. When it is coming from a desire, that's the place we want to step into. Does that make sense? I hope that's clear. All right, so who has any questions for what based on what I shared so far? Questions? So Jean says that she definitely has a problem with asking. Great advice, you're welcome. All right, so does anyone have any questions about what I've shared so far? If not, I'm gonna wrap this because I think we went, oh my gosh, we went 25 minutes today. But I think this is a really good topic. So if you don't have any questions, I'm gonna wrap up. If you do, put them in the comment section. This is a real serious topic, right? Again, I'm speaking specifically to women who are always the ones who feel like you have to do for everyone else, that you have to provide for everyone else first, your needs come last or not at all, those kind of things. This conversation that we're having today is for you, all right? And I hope that you found some value in it. If you have, I invite you to like, comment, and share this video. And if you would like some support around making the kind of money that you know that you're capable of, then I would invite you to have a breakthrough session with me. There is no cost for it. You want to go to DesireeStafford.com/session to get yourself signed up. Cool? All right. And until we speak again, I hope you guys are up to big, bold things in your life and in your business. Take care.